Alright, it looks like we're ready for the third part of our lesson, and that is we're going to finish the text, because that's all that we have left. But there's one more effect that I want to add to the H. So we're going to go back to our layer styles, and we want to give it a bevel or an embossing. Right, because if you look at the original logo, let's go back to the original logo. What you're going to see is you see how this has, like, it looks raised up a little bit right there. So we want to do the same thing to our H as well. So we're going to go back to layer style, and we're going to choose that bevel and emboss. And so bevel and emboss. And with that, we're going to go ahead and let's try embossing it with a hard chisel hard edge on the embossing. But now it's got a little bit of a shadow, and I don't think we really want that. So you can see that the embossing like reaches out as I change the size, right? So I want to really soften it, maybe down instead of up. No. There we go. Inner bevel. That's what we're looking for. So you notice sometimes you gotta look at several different ones before you can find what you're really looking for. And I like the up instead of the down. So there we go. That looks a lot more like the original one. So you might want to use the same settings that I have here. So I have an inner bevel, chisel hard. My depth is 188%, 8 pixels on the size, and 1 on soften. Just click OK. So it's not exactly the same, but I like it better than what we had when we didn't have that emboss, right? So if I turn it off, right, see the difference? Notice you can turn any of these effects off, right? I can turn the layer off, or I can turn the effects off. So it's not the actual H that Houston uses, but it's a lot closer to the actual H. They probably use a custom font, and you would have to purchase that font in order to get exactly there, or you would have to replicate that entire letter using a vector program, which we'll be doing later on this year. So maybe that's something that we'll try to do when we start doing that. All right, so now all that's left to make it the same is our Houston Astros all the way around. So we're gonna use that same font that we were using before, this Rockwell font, but it's obviously a lot smaller. So let's make it smaller. Yeah, 30 looks pretty good, right? That looks almost perfect. So we start with that S, because the S is going to be actually perfectly in the right spot here. Let's see how that. It's not exactly the same font, as you can see. We could try a different font. You know, we could look for something different besides Rockwell. I think there's there's one called. Thought I'd seen one that looked kind of like a sports font, like a jersey nameplate font. Well, there's Rockwell Extra Bold. Where'd it go? Let's use Rockwell Extra Bold. It's not going to be exactly the same, but so notice whenever I move it around, you see the pink lines, right? So you can see that I can line it up. It has a little help making it centered. So when I hover over the center of the star, you see how it gives me that pink line. So that way I know it's actually centered. So it's looking to help you do that. Okay, so now what I'm going to have to do is make a layer for each one of the letters in the word Houston, and then again for each one of the letters in the word Astros. So let's just start with the H. Right, so I'm going to come down here, make a new layer. And the reason I want to do it this way is because I don't want to get them confused with the different parts, with the other letters themselves, right? So, and then I'm going to make another new layer, O. U. Okay. So I got my H-O-U-S, right? But now what's wrong with it? It's not lining up perfectly, right? So that's because I have to rotate these letters in order to make them be in the correct position. So I'm going to move my reference layer underneath all of my letters so I can really kind of see how the letters line up above. So I'm going to start with the S right here, and then I'm just going to try to get it in as close to the same position. Okay, now we're going to do the O. So first I'm just going to using the arrow keys, right, to get it basically where it needs to be. Now what I'm going to do is I need to rotate that image. So I'm going to come over here to Edit, Transform, Rotate. Now I'm also going to zoom in more. So I'm going to come over here. You see what I changed right here, where from 100% to 200%. In fact, I'm going to probably change it again to 300%. Now we can actually see the letters a lot better. Even though they're blurrier, I'm going to be able to move them a lot easier. So now I could just rotate here, but what I really want to do, yeah, we'll try this first. There we go. So if you get the letter lined up pretty good, you can easily rotate it and put it basically in the same spot. But you can also change the rotation point. So let's go to the O. All right, I'm going to put the O right on top of the other O. And then again, image rotation. Right. Oh, not image rotation. Edit, transform, rotate. And then I'm going to rotate the O so it's where it needs to be. Okay. And then lastly, the H. But here's one thing I want to show you that might be a helpful tool is you go to Edit, Transform, Rotate. You can also move the rotation point. Right now it's in the dead center, but I can click. Well, it's not going to let me do it. Okay, you hit the Alt key, and then you can move this little rotation point, and I can set the rotation point to the corner of the H, and now you're going to see how it rotates around its foot instead of around its middle now. So if I put that foot in the same place as the other foot is, right? Oh, well, the rotation point is still over here. So I want to put that there, and now I need to hit the Alt key, move the rotation point over here to the foot. Now it's going to rotate around that rotation point. You can also put it right back in the center, right, so that it rotates around that again. Okay, so now I can zoom back out. I'm going to set this for 100%, and I'm hitting enter. Remember, after each one you got to hit enter. I'm going to turn off my reference layer. Right now, is that perfect? No, it's not. So I can zoom in by either doing like this, right? So, or I can set the exact zoom 400%, right? So now I can come in here and make some smaller adjustments edit, transform, rotate. Okay. Enter. Transform, rotate. Okay. Rotate. All right. So use my Alt key to minus it. Okay, back to 100%. That looks a lot better than it did before, so I still need to put the TON and then the Astros across the bottom. So how many total layers are we going to have on this? Once we're done, turn that layer off at the very bottom, right? So when we're finished, we're going to have another 5, 6, 7, 8 more layers in addition to all the layers that I already have. Okay, so that's what I want you to turn in as your lesson 7.3 will be your completed all the letters, and you will have the 8 layers that we already completed plus a layer for each one of the letters. So there are 7 layers in Houston and 5 more layers in Astros, so 12 more layers. So there should be 20 layers, not counting your original layer 1 and your reference layer. So 20 total layers in your final 7.3 project, and it'll say Houston Astros all the way around when you're finished.